Well, thank you guys so much for jumping on tonight. What I'm going to be talking about today is all about the rules of what I call badass branding. So there are 7 rules of branding like a pro that I can say honestly completely shifted my life and my business. And I want to get into the nitty gritty with you guys today on exactly what those things were. So I'm going to start just a little bit about myself. So I've been in the fitness industry now for 16 years. My parents started a Gold's Gym actually in Ontario back in the 80s. So my mom went into contractions in a Gold's Gym parking lot, and I've been really in the industry ever since. And so I really love what you guys do, connecting with people, and so much more than just about achieving a fitness goal. There's so much more behind that, the emotional part of it, being able to help people really, really change their lives. So I am so in tune with that, not only as someone that works in the industry, but being a fitness professional and an entrepreneur. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I would call my sweet spot. What this really means is why I'm different than any other business mentor or educator out there. I kind of call myself a baby gym rat. I really did start in the industry at a very, very young age, and I worked for the 3 largest companies in Canada. I worked for Good Life Fitness for 10 years, as well as Steve Nash, who's out in BC, and then most recently the president of a fitness company. And then from there, I've always had this entrepreneurial flair. It's been about 13 years ago, my husband and I moved to Vietnam, and we were marketing products online. This was like back when things were so different. You just didn't have the same impact of social media. I was doing videos about how to tie scarves and trying to write blog posts about it. It was just a totally different landscape, but I really grew up in that online marketing world. And then I love to teach. I really love developing things that are really simple. I hate when things are complicated. And when it comes to online marketing, if everything is important, then nothing is important. So I really have this simplistic flair to everything that I teach, because if it's simple, you'll execute. If it's not, you'll probably procrastinate. That is what I would call my sweet spot, and why I am different than any other business mentor or self-employment educator out there. What I really do is I help top-tier coaches eliminate the overwhelm in their marketing efforts so that they can have the business of their dreams. So I actually work with quite a few people from Beachbody, a lot of the top-tier coaches, because this just helps really nail it. What makes the inner workings of their business, what really, really makes it simple to execute. So hopefully you have a little glass of wine or something to drink, and I can just dive into all these golden nuggets. So the objectives of today, I'm going to go through what I learned for $150 an hour from my branding coach. I worked with a branding coach for, it was about 8 months, and I'm going to share with you guys the simplified version of what she taught me. And then I'm going to go into the 7 rules of badass branding. So we're talking your ideal customer goes into immediate stalker territory as soon as they come into contact with you. That's the level of branding influence that we're going to get to today and talk about. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take you on a journey to Lululemon and how they actually employ these branding standards and this branding excellence. And then lastly, I'm going to leave you with some resources to really make you badass ready. So what is the biggest challenge in branding yourself in a sea of sameness? I think that this is one of the questions that whenever I talk to coaches, and I know I went through this struggle in the beginning, when you are putting yourself out there as a coach and you consistently see things on social media about what others are doing, it can really have that sort of attack on your own self-esteem and really unroot what you're doing and cause you to feel that you don't know why you're different. And I think the biggest thing is that posting used to be enough. You could get on social media and you could put yourself out there and people would react to it right away. I hear this all the time about new coaches. When you first get started in your business, you just put something out there and people start contacting you. It's really easy to get your business up and going in the beginning. But then something changes, and all of a sudden it's like a barren desert, and you're looking for customers, any customers, not even ideal people, and you're just really hoping to get that momentum back. So this is what I actually learned from my branding coach for $150 an hour. This was the advice she gave me. First lesson I had from her is that I hadn't really built any authentic trust. So what I mean by that is, all things being equal, people will always do business and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. So this lesson number one has to be a part of your strategy. What are you doing and what are you putting out there that really helps establish you as someone that people like, know, and really, really trust? That's something you can do differently than your competition. Next, we discussed the fact that I really hadn't differentiated myself in a sea of sameness. So when I was first starting out, I wasn't confident in actually why I was that different. I just knew what I was passionate about and what I liked to do, but I really hadn't solidified, why am I actually different? And if we don't know it internally, I'm telling you, you can't sell it with confidence that you actually are different than anyone else out there. And when it comes to sales, I really think sales, it's such a mindset game. If you're confident, you're going to be able to instill that trust in other people. So getting yourself right first and being able to know why you're different is so crucial in this step. You can't look at the competition and say, you're going to do it better. You have to look at the competition and say, you're going to do it differently. That's what people will remember. And that's why people will want to work with you versus anyone else. The next lesson I learned from her is that I hadn't aligned my tribe. So what this was really speaking to is that sometimes what'll happen is that you'll go out there and you'll really just have anyone that will have you will try to work with. And what that tends to do is that you start attracting people that are actually your nightmare. And it starts to take something that you really, really love and make it something that is no longer pleasurable. And you start to almost get caught up in this business that you thought had a lot of potential, but you're working with people that what I would call a time vampire. They just suck your time away and you're not loving what you're doing. So this is about being intentional and sticking with the people who pull the magic out of you and not the madness. When it comes to your values, they're really like a magnet. You have to put out there what you want to attract. So the next lesson I learned is that I hadn't defined my authentic brand experience. So when you think about how do you want your customers to feel when you reach out to them, there's a big difference between me saying, oh, hey girl, you're looking great. How are things going? Versus, hi there, I know we haven't chatted much, but da 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 da. Those are two very, very different styles. One would be the brand experience of what's called a lover, like hey girlfriend or hey love or something like that. Versus the other one is more kind of cautionary. That's what would be called a girl next door. So there's very different style types in which you can have this brand experience you create. But if you're not intentional about it, one, it takes you so much more time to ever write an email, write a post, or write anything you're putting out there because you're kind of going back and forth with your style. And once you define your experience, I had this epiphany, everything became so much easier. And this is because your brand is really a story unfolding across all customer touch points. So once you hone in on who you are as a brand, everything just falls into line and it really, really becomes streamlined. So next thing I was struggling with is I really didn't know who I was talking to. I had a wide spectrum. I want to coach people and I don't really know who I want to coach, but I know that I like talking to people and I like helping people. Definitely not the ideal situation when you need to be very specific on who you help and defining yourself in that sea of sameness. This step was about getting closer than ever to your customers. So close that you can tell them what they need well before they realize it themselves. So the reason this step was so life-changing is that all of a sudden, I could go from writing a post that would get no engagement or like very, very little to all of a sudden being able to speak directly to who I wanted to work with because I understood them at this much, much, much deeper level than ever before. The next rule was around, I didn't know which 20% got me 80% of my results. So if anyone has heard of the Pareto principle, this is really about the fact that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your salespeople. So what this means is that right now, if you look at your time on a spectrum, 80% of the stuff that you're doing is not contributing to a result. So you think about it, a lot of us are very busy people that are juggling a lot of things, whether it be kids, another job, or maybe you want to bring coaching to a full-time level. Think about if you could be consistently cutting out 80% of the stuff you're doing and only doing the things that were working. I went through this huge revelation in the beginning where I was spending a ton of time on Instagram. And what I was finding is that I got a lot of likes, but no real engagement or customers were coming from it. Totally changed my strategy, just focused on Facebook. And it was incredibly, not only the time savings, the amount of money I was spending on having someone post for me on Instagram, it was crazy. So this was such a big lesson that was so crucial. And then the last lesson is I didn't have a strategy on answering the deep-rooted challenges my ideal customers were having. When it comes down to it, knowing your customer is knowing what keeps them up at night. And there's sort of all these thoughts that go through all of our heads, right? Even as entrepreneurs. So some of the things we may think about is that business is really hard. Like people aren't engaging with me online. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fit this in time-wise, my business with my kids and my family. There are all these thoughts that run through our heads on a daily basis. To be really great at branding and at marketing, you got to know your customer so well. You could nail every one of those thoughts, not only the thought and how they say it. We're going to move into the 7 rules of badass branding. So your ideal customer, they'll go into immediate stalker territory. So they are checking you out. They can't get enough of you. And they're so excited for what you have to offer. So the first thing is to tell your story. Okay. So this is really about, when we look at that first lesson I talked about building authentic trust, this is how you do it. You tell your story and you tell people, why should they actually trust you? What is your story of how you've gotten to where you are? The next lesson, and this one is going back and solving that problem of differentiating yourself in a sea of sameness. This is really about talking about your sweet spot. So what makes you a magical unicorn? This is about what makes you different. I gave you guys this example for myself at the very beginning of the call. What makes me very different than any other coach out there? And that's what I would call what makes you a magical unicorn. The next is your value. Who do you want to attract? Because your values are going to match the values of the people that you're looking to work with. And you want to really make sure that you know exactly what it is that you're trying to attract back, because you may not be able to put your finger on it, but in business where you feel like, whoa, like things are going really well and you feel this resonance versus all of a sudden you start to feel dissonance and things aren't fun anymore and you're not liking it. That is all rooted deep, deep down in your values. And when they are aligned with the people you work with and spend the most time with, that's when you will feel that crazy momentum and like you're on a winning streak. The next question is talking about your brand and really solving that question of what does that brand experience look like? So how do you want your customers to feel? And I always think of this example at Disneyland, where at Disney, their philosophy is that everybody is having the most magical time. And they talk about in their brand experience that when a kid drops an ice cream cone, obviously Disney is supposed to be this very, very happy place. So they're on it. They rush right to it, get that kid a new ice cream cone, and make sure that no matter what, that happy place is never interrupted. So that really is about thinking, how do you want your customers to really feel? Next is getting really clear on who it is you want to work with. So who is that ideal customer? And the one that you can't get enough of. If you were to think about who you work with right now, that is just a dream boat for you. If you could have 10 of them, that would be life-changing. That's really getting to the bottom of who your ideal customer is that you really, really want to work with. Because when you're clear about it, you can put it right out there, calling all fitness entrepreneurs, those that want to double their income, those that are suckers for simplicity, those that are unapologetically authentic. You can put it right out there exactly what you're looking for. Next is finding out and really getting to the bottom of that most valuable resource. So who is your 20% that you really need to pay attention to, whether we're talking about time, like what is that 20% of your time that you really can look at and cut out 80% of what's not working and continue to go back to the drawing board. Or this works in another way as well. If you look at your customer base, 20% of your customers bring in 80% of your revenue. So who do you need to focus on? Maybe they're nurses, maybe they're in healthcare, maybe they're teachers. Put your energy in those people and pay attention to those stats in order for this to become a very, very valuable resource that you can just keep continuing to play the odds on. And last one is your content generator. So what does your ideal coach actually write in her diary? What are the thoughts that go through her head so that you can have continuous content and things to talk about on social media? I just want to explain exactly how those, before we jump into the Lululemon journey, I just want to make sure, because I'm a sucker for simplicity, I want to make sure that how we just ran through that really is crystal clear. So when I ran you through and talked to you about the lessons I learned when I paid my branding coach $150 an hour, I was really explaining there are 7 foundational cracks in my business when I first started. Like I was making no money online and I had no idea really where to start. And as soon as I learned those 7 lessons, I implemented them right away. And the outcome was astounding. I was able to go from a part-time online entrepreneur to just officially moving into a full-time educator and entrepreneur online. So within a 7-month period, it completely changed my business and my life. And those 7 steps that we just went through, those are the things that you will need to do in order to fill those cracks. So I'm going to show you, if we look at this example with Lululemon, exactly how this takes place in action, because Lululemon, they do it beautifully. So we'll take a journey, and this is going to be a journey down the road of one of the most successful brands of all time. I'm sure that Lululemon needs no introduction, but the thing that maybe you haven't heard of is actually the story of Lululemon, how the brand really developed. It started off in 1998, and it was a little yoga studio in Kitsilano in Vancouver on the West Coast. So it started off as this little store, and now Chip is worth $2.9 billion. Lululemon was a yoga-inspired technical apparel company, and they were both for men and women. And it started off as a design studio by day and a yoga studio by night. And it soon, after, to pay the rent, they had both of those things going on. And Chip had actually started West Beach, if you're familiar with that clothing line. He had had this experience with yoga, and he was an adrenaline junkie. So he loved to surf and he loved to snowboard, hence where West Beach had sort of evolved out of. And he was finding that through yoga, he had these same adrenaline and euphoric feelings that just blew his mind. So that's really where he got into designing clothing and then having it as a yoga studio at night. It became a standalone store 2 years later in November of 2000 on West 4th Avenue in Kitsilano. What's really interesting about Lululemon itself is that they really tell this story about how they started. And if we're going back to that lesson number 1, this is what builds authentic trust with your audience. This is directly from their website. I'm just going to read you what they've written. It was founded by Chip Wilson in 1998, and it's a yoga-inspired technical athletic apparel company for men and women. Their first designs were made for women to wear during yoga, and through plenty of feedback from our guests, ambassadors, and elite athletes, we now design yoga, running, cycling, training, and most other sweaty pursuits for men and women. Not to mention our designers are athletes and sweat-minded people too. So what's really cool about their whole story, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but everything is grassroots. They haven't put out billboards or marketing in magazines. All of their beginnings were very much through their guests, ambassadors, and athletes that they worked with to help spread the word, which I think is very much like a network world of selling. Your story has to be something people want to share. It's got to be sticky, and you've just got to put it out there because it really does help build rapport and trust with people. The next piece of this is really where, this is right on their website as well. They talk about the history of where they've come from and their manifesto, which I'm going to get into a little bit further. This is all about their values, and what really helps create them is someone very, very different in the marketplace. That is how they tell their story. Next is their sweet spot. As I mentioned, Chip Wilson, he was a technical fiber guru. So that's where this one circle here comes from, the technical athletic fabrics. He was a guru in. The next thing is that those euphoric feelings coming from yoga. So that was a big part of the business. And then lastly, his vision was to create this community hub where you could go in and get gear to sweat in, but he also wanted people there that could teach you about the fabrics, and it could really be this community place that you would just want to hang out in. And they started actually running yoga classes on the weekends with the local teachers who wanted to come in and teach. So it was really important for them to create real relationships with their guests and understand what they were passionate about, how they like to sweat, and how they could help them celebrate their goals. So two things: if you've been in a Lululemon, they write your name on the door and ask you how you sweat. And then they also have all their goals posted up on the wall. So these three things together really differentiate Lululemon of any other athletic gear company out there. This is why they are so very different than anyone else. The next step is going into their values. So this is where we talked about branding sort of being this magnet to pull out people that were like-minded. These were the values on their website. And to be honest, I looked at them and thought they're pretty vanilla. Like, there wasn't a lot that really stood out to me as like, yes, this is proving my point exactly. Great. These values serve to motivate their employees. But this is where it got really interesting. Their values in action. So these are the people they actually want to attract. They want to attract people that believe in sweating once a day. Sweat once a day to regenerate your skin. They want to attract people that believe your outlook on life is a direct reflection of how much you like yourself. So that self-love journey that they're putting out there and that you practice in yoga. Yoga really isn't about your relationship with your flexibility. It's about your relationship with your body and how you grow to embrace that, right? The pursuit of happiness is the source of all unhappiness. So these values and what they're putting out there is a direct magnet. If you don't believe this, you're not going to be walking into that store. But I guarantee you, if you see this and you're like, yeah, I do believe friends are more important than money, this company will speak to you in a way that no other brand will. So this is really how they communicate their values and how they put them into action. This speaks to their brand experience. So what Lululemon actually is called the Magician. There's this quiz that I do in one of my courses. It's called the Brand Avatar. And it tells you exactly based on your personality, what is the brand that will best speak to how you want to communicate with your audience. So Lululemon is a magician. So this is an inventor, a transformer, and a visionary. What this means is that the goal of the brand is to make dreams come true, understand the laws of the universe. You think about this, you go into their stores, every employee has their goal up on the wall. This really comes through when you walk into one of their stores. Strategy. So their strategy as a brand is to develop a vision to live by, to help other people transform their lives using new methods, invent new methods and processes. So this is that transformational part of how yoga can help transform people's lives and how any form of exercise really, really does that for people. The last part here is a fear that this brand archetype typically has. So this is the unintended negative consequences that their inventions, methodologies, or any ideas that they put out there don't work to plan. A really good example of this is Lululemon actually has what they call the Lulu Lab. And this is in Kitsilano, and anything that they want to put out there, they will test at that store first because they don't want anything to not work as planned or to have unintended negative consequences. The other thing that's crazy interesting about Lululemon is that they will legitimately, if you talk to the right person, take back anything you're not happy with. Anything at any time. So it's this unintended negative consequences. They are all about transforming lives, making dreams come true, and avoiding negative consequences. This is how their archetype really comes out on their website and how they talk. We know that yoga rejuvenates our bodies and calms our mind. And one of the ways we practice giving without expectation is by sharing our love for yoga. Here they obviously are talking about that rejuvenation of yoga, calming the mind and transforming yourself with practice in order to transport yourself to a different place. That is the magician at work right there. So they've really, really defined their brand experience and how they want every customer to feel when they walk into a store, inspired, transformed, and just like they are in this magical place that anything is possible. So next, I'm going to talk to you guys about their ideal customer. It's Ocean. And Ocean is the muse that they use whenever they're talking on social media. They are speaking to Ocean. Ocean is a 32-year-old professional single woman who makes over $100,000 a year. She's engaged, has her own condo, is traveling, she's fashionable. She has an hour and a half to work out every day. And what Lululemon really does here is they want to attract people like Ocean. They want to attract people to be like her as well. So Chip Wilson talks about why this ideal customer persona really works for the brand. If you're 20 years old or you're graduating from university, you can't wait to be that woman. And if you're 42 years old with a couple of kids, you wish you had that time back. So Lululemon aspires for these same things, right? This travel, this being on the higher end of fashion, sweating every day. So not only does the brand attract these customers, it also attracts people that want to work to be there. They're aspiring to that persona. It's really interesting because if you go and look on Lululemon's website or you look at any of their social media stuff, you will now really start to see the impact of knowing who their ideal customer is and speaking directly to her. Even in the way they describe to and from work, the way they describe their collections of clothes, they are talking to a 32-year-old woman that is engaged, that is in travel and sweating every day. So they know exactly who they're talking to. Step number 6 is their most valuable resource. So this is where we get into the 80-20 rule. Whenever I do this, when it's live, I usually ask everyone, okay, tell me how many pairs of Lululemon pants you have. And there's a wide spectrum. There's going to be a bunch of people on the call that are like, yeah, I have like 5 or 8. And then basically, as I continue to ask people, okay, who has 20? Who has 30? Who has 40? You will see this doesn't fail anytime that 20% of the group owns 80% of the inventory of Lululemon, meaning that there are usually 2 people on the call that are like, yep, I got 35 pairs of Lululemon pants. And so how this really plays out is that Lululemon knows which of the 20% gets them 80% of the results. So they know their core, and they know that their core, the people that they are going to target and focus on, are the group between 28 years of age to 34. They have an aspirational core around those age groups that naturally get attracted, and they put focus on those people. They don't worry about anyone else, because if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. In knowing who you're talking to and who that core is, you're really going to make sure that you get the most bang for your buck. And those are the people that, in their case, are buying. Those are the ones that spend the money on $130 yoga pants. So they don't waste time dabbling in people that won't spend money there. All right, and step number 7. So this is the content generator. This is really knowing your customer so well that you could know what they would write about in their diary. So this is so cool. If we think about, now that we know Ocean, we know that she's engaged. She may have her fiance's parents in town. So if we look at what Lululemon provides on their Pinterest account, you can see here they've got a local city guide. So what to do in Vancouver, West Van, and the local parks, where to eat, drink, and adventure. They've got a piece here about working out and doing the TRX, a local city guide to Kitsilano. So you think about it, a 32-year-old Ocean, she's going to work out. She's going to want to travel around her city and get to know what's going on. And she's probably going to go out to eat with her friends, her fiance, and her fiance's parents, or her parents when they're in town. So this guide really, really is handpicked for Ocean, their favorite places to sweat, eat, drink, and spend our time. Lululemon answers the question that run through their ideal customer's mind all day. So I want you guys to think for a second. This is like reflection time. If you guys were to really just take a moment to think about yourself and your business and your teams, and I want you to think, what would change if you knew why your story mattered and you were convinced that you could explain that to others? What if you really knew why you were different and you could shout it from the rooftops and feel extremely confident that you could offer a value that no one else could? You felt validated in that value. And lastly, what if you knew what message your ideal customer really needed to hear to take action? How would that change your business? So I can tell you guys that I literally 7 months ago to the day hired my branding coach, and I got to work. I knew that I was working full time as the president of a fitness company, and I knew that I wanted to do more with my life. I wanted more freedom. My husband lives 3 provinces over, so like a 5-hour plane ride away. I knew that I wanted more freedom in my life and that this was my ticket to be able to do it. And I didn't want to waste time. I didn't have a lot of time working a full-time job and trying to manage a long-distance relationship. I knew that I had to get this running very swiftly and quickly. I really wanted to help people. I knew that that was the core of it, but I just didn't know how. With the 7 things that I've just taught you guys, I have literally transformed my life. I work for myself, and I've been able to create an income online through taking these 7 steps and actually now helping to educate others to get to this same desired outcome that they're looking for. So I want to invite you guys to do a couple of things tonight. I want to invite you to join Business Building for Fitness Entrepreneurs. This is the free Facebook community group that I run. And what I'm going to do is give you guys access to the Done For You template. It's called the Done For You Ideal Customer Profile. And you're also going to get access to all the other free resources that I have there. I often will share copywriting tips with you guys so the work's done for you. And any videos or training tips, I post it all on my Facebook page. You can go check it out and join that group. And the other thing that you can do is I have it's called the 21-Day You Challenge. And my next course is starting on June 1st. And all of the 7 steps we've just talked about, I help you get extremely clear on exactly how to do that for yourself. There's a video, a tutorial, and then a template that you fill out. And you'll have me as your coach along the way. I do live office hours with it. The amount of feedback I've gotten from others, I know Emma's done the course as well, and Bria, if you guys know Bria, really talk to them about the results they've had from it, because I know a lot of people have seen some amazing things. And I think the biggest thing is the confidence they have after leaving it. So I have a course starting June 1st for anyone that wants to check it out. And I am offering actually you guys 50% off the course if you join in the next 24 hours. So check it out. All the info is there. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is actually run a little mini contest. So these are the 3 steps that you would take if you want to be entered. And what you'll get is actually an hour of business coaching with myself if you are the selected winner. So you join the Facebook group. You're going to get a copy of the Done For You template. You really don't have to take any steps there. I'll just provide it for you in the Facebook group. And then you will just tag 5 fellow entrepreneurs that you think would love the training you received today. And I'll make sure that they get a copy of it. So you would just post that on your own social media. I'll share this image so that you can share this, and you would just tag me in that as well. And then if you guys want, you can absolutely message me, add me to Facebook. It's Ashley Shaw. And in doing so, I will give you a 15-minute focus call. 15 minutes, we'll dive in deep to somewhere you want to get some momentum and movement. And then I'll also make sure that you guys get a copy of the curriculum for the 21-Day You Challenge. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time to jump on this call today. And I really, really hope that everyone is feeling extremely empowered and really clear on some of the next steps they can be badass in their branding. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Yes, like I said, I got introduced to Ashley through Bria and just watching the shift that Bria had as a coach and just the confidence that was coming through with her post. And it really was helping her to go to the next level with being very specific about what she was saying and how that in turn helped her business just grow and flourish and find coaches just like her. And so we talked about it and she's like, you got to meet my friend Ashley. So I jumped in and did the course, and I've done a lot of social media trainings, a lot. And a lot of them talk about like more numbers. You need to do more numbers. You need to do 20 invites today. You need to do this, you know, or whatever. And that didn't work well with me. So I'm like, it doesn't make sense to do 20 of something if I'm not getting results. And so, or getting the results I want. I wanted to do less for more. And then I jumped in and did Ashley's course, and I loved how she really broke down like what it is that makes you and how can you do this. And then your voice comes through crystal clear, and how to put that on social media, the type of words to use, the font to use, how to edit your photos, etc. Like that, like with the that branding quiz I took, I was like, oh, I didn't know I was that. And that I actually came out with like a lot. I'm talking about, so she was like, okay, you have a lot of them. So throw this down. And we figured it out. I was so frustrated with not knowing what to do and being wishy-washy, and this gave me clear direction. So that's why I talked with her, and I was like, you know what? I'm sure other people are frustrated too. You need to hop on the call and talk to my team, and maybe you can help them. So guys, I don't know. This one's a good one. So I would reach out to her and at least talk with her and join the group. You're going to learn a lot about you, and you're going to stop wasting so much dang time. That's the biggest thing. And you're going to connect with the people that need you. And that's what we all are wanting to do, right? So I love this. My favorite thing that you said, I was like scribbling all over my notebook. But one of my favorite things that you said was, what would you change if you knew why your story mattered, or something along those lines? And you asked a few other questions after that. I'm like, what would I change if I knew that people needed to hear from me? If they didn't hear from me, something bad would happen to them. Like how much more bold would I be about my story? You know what I mean? Like I finally shared, for the first time ever as a coach, I've been a coach for almost 7 years, my food story, my unhealthy relationship with food and my childhood trauma with food today. For the first time, I shared it today. And, you know, some of the confidence I've learned from Ashley has helped with that. Like, you need to be real with your story. You need to find those points and pull them out and figure out who you are and talk to the people like you. So anyway, I love that, Ashley. Thank you so much. Do y'all have any questions?